the issue of South Africa as a violent society. Thank you so much to all of those that have tweeted in. I can tell you there have been hundreds of tweets about this issue. It's a concern that is very, very close to the hearts of South Africans. It's something we wake up with on a daily basis, and unfortunately it's something we go to sleep with. Here is Prince Chiramba writing into us. The apartheid era damaged our minds. It harnessed us to believe that everything must be solved by violence. We need God. All right, Prince, thanks so much for writing into us. Here's another one. Sipiwe is saying, our history, our mindset is of the past. We are carrying our apartheid influence. All right, Sipiwe, thank you. The Daily Wrap-Up Show. When a man has lost his role of a father, caring, loving, protective, and a role model of his kids, then our society breaks. You're so right. You're so right. You really are. Katu is saying, people intend to shift blames, forgetting themselves by asking, did I do something positively to make a change or not? And that's very important. I don't think we ask ourselves these questions. Another one coming in, it certainly isn't about the statues. It's about transformation. Yeah, those statues stand for so much. Dinesh, I know this is something you want to talk about because you asked me, you said, listen, have you spoken about the statues? And I said, yes, we have spoken about the statues, but I know you want to address it more because it's not about the statue. There's so much more about this. And I think we need to give some accolades to those students at UCT.
Absolutely.
Go for it. You do it.
The important thing for me is to just emphasize that what they've done is not an instance of violence. It's not an example of violence. It's an example of activism. It's us renegotiating our role and our place and our identity in South Africa. And it's the beauty of a democratic state that we live in now, that we're able to do that. These youngsters have done something that is incredible. It's quite incredible that they've now managed to get the statue moved. Yes, everyone will focus on the statue. And obviously, as a trained historian myself, I see the importance of these kinds of things for our history and our heritage. But let's not forget that they've managed to negotiate it in a non-violent way. And I think these are kids that are role models. These are the positive role models. I want my daughters to look up to these youngsters and say, that's what I want to be able to do, to be vocal, to be able to negotiate change, to be able to do it through the normal processes.
Yeah. So I'm not sure if anybody has congratulated the UCT students on what they have achieved through dialogue, because it's a big issue. It's happened, and it's happening this afternoon. So well done to them. I also want to talk about the coverage, media coverage, because we all know that bad news sells, and we all joke about the fact that living in South Africa has to be one of the most interesting countries to live in, because every single day there's something to report on. There's always, in every direction you turn, major stories. It's never boring. I mean, some countries would report on a traffic jam somewhere. Here we talk about devastating stories. But what does that do to us? What does that do to the psyche of South Africans?
Can I flip that around a little bit and say that bad news doesn't sell anymore because we're online.
Good.
We don't make money from bad news.
Okay.
Bad news goes viral. And that makes us as individuals, the people who are sharing that news, responsible for publishing and pushing it on and making it go viral.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to say to you is I don't think we should stop placing so much emphasis on news agencies for sharing and spreading that bad news. Yes, they're putting it out, but we as individuals are sharing it.
Yeah.
We're doing it via Facebook, we're doing it via Twitter, and so on and so forth. We're pushing it further and further and further. We're making sure that eventually our kids see this stuff on their timelines. We don't take responsibility for that, unfortunately. I don't follow the New York Times, I don't follow the London Evening Standard, and so on and so forth. But I get the news on my newsfeed via my friends.
That's it. Whatever they
and
retweet, I'm seeing.
Responsibility as individuals
is to spread what you want the world to see.
Absolutely.
And what the world saw was, let's give one example, and this is where I want to bring you in, Simi. For instance, the story of our very own journalists here, Vuyo Mvoko and two of our other colleagues, being mugged in front of a live television camera. Now, this went viral. The whole world saw this, and the whole world is seeing, as we say, stories of crime, of violence taking place in South Africa. What does this do to business? Do people really want to put their money in this country?
Well, the reality of it is that business is not too comfortable to invest in the country at this point in time. There's a negative investor perception of South Africa outside the country because of crime as being one of the key contributing factors. The incident with Vuyo is really an example of the arrogance of criminals in the country and the fact that our criminal justice system does not deter that sort of arrogance. And if it can be done in front of live TV that they really don't care. And this is a message that we are trying to send out to government. We're trying to support them, where we're trying to bring the business sector in to help government to get its house in order where the criminal justice system is concerned. Because it is not optimally functioning. There is no synergy between the various departments. Each of them operate in silos. And I think one of the key issues is, or the basic things, is that there isn't even an integrated database which sits between each of the departments within the justice system. And if you cannot share information with each other on crime or criminality and suspects, etc., it causes a problem, and that is the problem that we're experiencing right now, is the lack of synergy, the lack of government working together with its various component departments. And that is frustrating the business sector tremendously. And as a result, it's led to basically a lack of wanting to invest in the country, because a lot of businesses believe that their employees are unsafe, especially foreign businesses that come into the country. They're concerned that the employees will not be protected by the law. They're concerned about robberies, and then also the sustainability issue, which goes back to the economy. We've got problems, huge problems with electricity theft in the country, which is contributing to the overarching problem that Eskom currently has. Businesses are also concerned about operational sustainability in the country due to the fact that we are having shortages in electricity, which is causing further frustrations as well. And the electricity theft issue is simply not being addressed. And it's criminal activity that is also contributing to why we have a shortage of electricity
and hence Eskom and our load shedding, and which we're not going to talk about now. That's
another
entirely different issue, which unfortunately we don't have time to talk about. But what you're talking about is businesses. It's a vicious circle. Businesses are not happy with what they're seeing. They want to pull out the country. They obviously have to shed jobs, and this leads to unemployment. And this goes back to the man in the family not having a job. And then what does he do? He's got this family to support. He's not getting any money. He turns to drugs, alcohol, bad crime to try and feed his family, feed himself, and then everything goes wrong. I mean, it is a vicious cycle we're stuck in.
It is a vicious cycle. I think that is a major contributory factor to the challenge that we are facing, Leanne. But of course, let's also be mindful that many families in this country are run by women, single women, and who are bringing up their children, in a very good way, and helping them to achieve a lot in their lives through education. And I think that's the side of our society which we don't lift up. When people talk about absent fathers, that's one part of the story. But I think the other part of the story is that we also have mothers who continue to be there for their children, for their families. In many of the families where you have the men sitting in the streets, for instance, looking for jobs, because we have them all over the place due to our high unemployment rate, they probably come from homes where it's only the partner that is working, who keeps the home fires burning, who keeps everybody fed, who keeps the lights on in the home. And I think we also need to celebrate, therefore, the contribution that women continue to contribute to build social cohesion in our society. And I think I sometimes have a problem when we decry this challenge of absent fathers. We don't, at the same time, acknowledge the role that women play in many of our home situations.
We certainly don't. But
I think we also need to acknowledge that the definition of family has changed. It's not the old definition of mother, father, and children. Family is much more broader. You have many people that have been brought up by their mothers and are very successful in their lives. And for me, how do we acknowledge that? That is still a family in my view. And therefore, when people talk about the role of fathers, I think we should not overemphasize it as if when the father is not there, then everything
falls apart. It doesn't.
Which is not true.
One of the issues, and surprisingly, I'm surprising myself that we haven't touched on, is the violence against women.
Yeah.
Yes.
The violence against women, the violence against children in the society,
Yes.
the rape
Yes.
levels in this country, and the kind of violent crime. Because the kind of violent crime is crime that you will not find anywhere else in the world.
Someone wants to steal your cell phone and they kill you.
They will, but they won't just kill you. They will torture you. They will brutally murder you. Where does this come from?
Well, as people have indicated on Twitter, we have a violent history in this country and we don't want to acknowledge it. I mean, apartheid, colonialism was propped up by violence, state violence. And so we have imbibed this culture that the only way to be on the upper hand, to control, is to subdue those that are threatening whatever it is, whether through laws that we have had, through guns, through a myriad of interventions that were very violent. Let's look at the situation in Limpopo right now, which is ridiculous. Women who get pregnant in this community, a leader says you must pay her 850. What happens to the men who have impregnated them? There's no justice for them. So violence is not just also physical, it's also emotional, it's economic, and it continues. And it has continued in that community because nobody has held that leader accountable. I would like to know what happens to those 850 rands that he's been collecting all these years. Why are these boys or the men who have impregnated these girls getting off the hook? And this for me is the kind of issues that we are facing in our society. Nobody wants to put a spotlight on those things because they are sacred. You can't challenge culture, it's my culture, and all of this. As if culture is something that cannot be challenged. And cultures change.
We need to wrap this up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you each a minute. We've got 3 minutes left. That's how bad it is. So I want you to wrap this up for me, and it's not easy. But Dinesh, in your opinion, talk about the society. What do we need? What do we need to do to rectify it?
I'm a mum of 2, so I would honestly say that that's where I have the greatest power right now as an individual. And so for me, it's my responsibility to teach my 2 young girls, for example, that they have a greater place in society, that they have agency, they have the ability to change society through their actions to do better, and so on and so forth. So in the home is where I would start. In the home, and also protecting them in social media. I know that's where you focus, but that's also a place where violence starts. Leanne, I would say I always try and discourage people from talking about social media as destructive. I would say that a parent needs to be attentive and show them the positive uses of this beautiful technology that allows us to connect with people from all over the world all of the time and to know what's going on in the world. We have access to so much more violence now because we have access to so much more media.
That's it.
And social media has made that possible. And that can be used as a huge positive.
It can, but to be used with care.
Absolutely.
Wrap this up on your side.
Well, as Brothers for Life, we have focused on how do we transform men in our society, because we think there's a huge role that men can play which is positive in society. We know that 5 out of 6 men are not abusive to their partners, they are supportive. How do we make those examples, put spotlight on those positive experiences of manhood? How do we also encourage men to become present in lives of children that don't have fathers in their lives, because we know that it has a positive spin-off in their development when they have somebody who is exemplifying positive fatherhood. And I think there's a lot that we need to do in emphasizing on prevention rather than looking after reacting to what has happened. How do we get into schools? How do we have youth programs that ensure that we transmit values that are very supportive to what our constitution is talking about?
That's it.
A healthy society, and build this cohesion.
Finally, Simi, on your behalf.
Thank you. I just believe South Africa is a very complacent society. We need to start doing more. Change starts with us as individuals. And if we take the selfless approach to wanting to change our society, we'll be able to do that. And the same with the private sector. It's all about ethical leadership in an organization. It impacts the people who work there, and it goes back into society for society's benefit.
Thank you so much for being with us and being a part of this panel discussion. But I think it's the one line I'm going to take away with you. You said it's 5 out of 6 men that don't want to do bad. And that's the reality. If you look at South Africa, the majority want this place to succeed, and it's the minority that are causing it not to succeed. So we need to tramp over them. We really do. Let's get rid of those people that have negativity in our country. Thank you so much. Thank you for contributing. Thank you for watching. It's been a pleasure having you and hosting this discussion. As hard as it may be, unfortunately, it's the reality we live with on a daily life. Well, again, we send condolences.